We're all set. Wonderful. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Economic Growth and Development, November 22nd. We have a quorum. Have the committee members had the opportunity to review the minutes from the last meeting? And do I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve. Leggett.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Is there a second?
I'll second that. Mike Wild.
Thank you, Supervisor Wild. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. We're going to start with workforce and training. Good morning, Liza. You've had a busy morning. Glad you could be with us. Go ahead.
Good morning. Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. On your agenda, I have 3 resolution requests, and if I may, I'd like to link 1 and 2 together, creating new positions and filling those positions. And I'm happy to explain the rationale.
Can I have a motion to bring that to the floor? Yeah. Supervisor Wild and Supervisor Leggett. Thank you.
Thank you. So we did a review with the personnel officer of our job descriptions over the summer. And for 2 of my employment counselors who teach classes and workshops, the current job description did not show that they're developing content and teaching to groups of people. So my request is to create an employment and training counselor 2, which encompasses developing content and teaching to groups of people, whether it's youth in our career class or our DSS class, probation, et cetera, all of our partnerships, as well as our virtual workshops. So my request is to create a new position for employment and training counselor 2 for 2 of my employment and training counselors, and one would remain a regular employment and training counselor. And then the hope is to fill those positions with those 2 employees. And it also provides an opportunity for advancement within my department. So if somebody were to start out as an employment and training coordinator and then wanted to be a counselor and then still develop further into an employment and training counselor 2, they could do that. This is a much clearer path for opportunities for advancement. And this is included and covered in my 2022 budget and completely covered under our federal grant. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Madam Chairwoman.
Go ahead, Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you. So for clarification, this is just cleaning up the job description, making sure that they fit what the job duties are, that these positions technically are already filled by personnel. Is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? All right, I'll call it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Liza?
Thank you. And my last resolution request is to amend my budget. We were grateful to receive a check from Glens Falls National Bank last week, thanking us for our work for the community during these challenging times with workforce. And their donation is so that we can market our free services to more people in our community. So the request is just to amend my budget to receive the $3,000 from Glens Falls National Bank.
Can I have a motion to bring this to the floor?
Supervisor Garrity.
I got Supervisor Wild, and was there a second?
I'll second it. Supervisor Garrity.
Thank you, Supervisor Garrity.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Liza? Okay. No questions. I'll call it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. You got anything else for us?
I'm happy to share some general employment and training updates since we know we still have some challenges with our workforce community, if the committee is interested in hearing some things.
Of course we're interested.
All right, so we still are at about 3.8 unemployment rate in Warren County. That's from September numbers. We will have October numbers this week. And so, but that number, I always tell everybody, take it with a grain of salt because it does not include people who are not looking for work, right? So yes, it is great that we have low unemployment, but we all see that there are still a lot of jobs that are not filled. And there is no one answer for that. Everybody loves to ask, why do we not have enough people in the workforce? And really there are about 10 answers. So we know that people are still struggling with students in quarantine, and so parents have to stay home. We know that the workforce is looking for the best opportunities, right? They have that leverage right now to look for the best jobs and that offer the best opportunities and benefits. And then there's still a high risk with COVID. And so people who may have been in public facing careers before are now reassessing what type of work that they want to be doing. And so those are some of the main challenges that we continue to see in the workforce. But we know that, that there are people not in the workforce that we want to bring in where we can. So we're still working with teenagers and planning our job fairs for the spring. We know that we have a low employment rate for people with disabilities. That's under 30% in Warren County. There are people with disabilities who have many skills and talents to contribute to our workforce. So we also want to work on recruiting them. Seniors, people who've been justice impacted, who have a criminal record, and that's a barrier to employment. So we continue to focus on the target populations for people who already live here in our community, but aren't in the workforce for a number of reasons. And so that continues to be our focus, and as well as coordinating plans, resources, and services, as there are many opportunities and plans in response to the pandemic, but also a lot of grant money that is out there. And so we want to make sure we're making the planning efficiently and effectively with all of our community partners in addressing some of these workforce challenges. So more of the same still in the workforce, but I'm happy to answer any questions that the committee may have.
Liza, I have a question. I don't want to put you on the spot, but can you outline some of the specific impediments here in Warren County for people with disabilities or people who are looking for a second chance?
Sure, that's a great question. So one of the challenges is finding a balance, right? A happy medium for people with disabilities, so that they may not lose all of their benefits, whether it's through Social Security or another organization or government entity that's giving them benefits, but finding that happy balance. And SAIL does that work. Southern Adirondack Independent Living can help people figure out that happy medium of where they won't lose all of their benefits, but they can still participate in the workforce. So, and then also businesses are also sometimes scared to, or hesitant, I won't say scared, hesitant to maybe hire somebody with disabilities if they have to make accommodations. But my office and SAIL, CWI, many other agencies can help businesses determine how to make reasonable accommodations so that somebody with a disability can be successful in their workplace. Those are some of the biggest challenges, and certainly, transportation, we know, also can be a barrier depending on the job and where the person lives. But those are the three basic main ones.
Thank you. Supervisor Leggett. Oh, I'm sorry, Supervisor Driscoll. I just saw an ear.
Thank you, Chairwoman. This past week, I made a copy of an article where Liza was featured in the recent edition of the Lake George Mirror, and it highlighted a lot of her comments at a recent EDC meeting up in Lake George at the Fort William Henry that I think 3 or 4 of us attended. Supervisor Leggett, Wild, Hogan, and myself. It clearly points out a lot of the reasons why employers are having a hard time recruiting and keeping individuals, but why those same individuals are having a hard time filling those positions. So I would encourage you to pick up this from your mailboxes. I think it was distributed at last Friday's board meeting. So thank you.
Thank you, Ben. As always, Liza does us proud.
Thank you.
Supervisor Wild.
Madam Chair, thank you. I have a follow-up to your question plus one more in addition to that, if you don't mind. In terms of the disabled employment rate, are we leveraging our social services or other groups to be able to get the word out that we can try to find a way to help mitigate this loss of benefits? I've heard that before in the past, that there is an issue with people feeling as though there's no incentive to go back to work because they could lose their benefits. And I'm wondering if we could get the word out through some other channels to help make some of that happen.
Yeah, we work very closely together, referring people, mutually, right, to agencies. The challenge usually is within the law, right, around Social Security disability benefits. The threshold for how much they can earn and can't earn in order to receive benefits. So it's hard to work around those laws that are in place. But there are experts who have been doing this and want to help people find solutions if they can. But it does vary person to person, of course.
I'll follow up with Liza with you a little bit later on that. I have some ideas. But one of the things you didn't talk about, and we've talked about many times in the past, is the issue with childcare. Can you give us a quick update in terms of where we stand with childcare?
Sure, thank you. So it continues to be a challenge. We know that we have lost many childcare seats in our county, about 40% since March 2019. And then I'm still hearing about childcare providers who are catching COVID or have to be in quarantine because of COVID. So those challenges are still existing. There is a lot of money flowing right now to address childcare, and we are still waiting to hear back from the feds about if our community project idea was accepted. Every month I'm checking in, and it's still under review at the Appropriations Committee. And we're trying to take a regional approach. So as I hear about what they're doing in the North Country or what other counties around the Albany area are looking to do, they're all really having the same plan that we had here, which is to recruit, train, and open more childcare providers, and utilizing both public and private funds for the startup costs for that. I really think it's important that private funds, public entity, or private funds from businesses are also a part of it because they are impacted by childcare as well. But we're just kind of we're in a holding pattern of waiting for funds to implement this program. But we also know that recruiting for training programs, no matter what they are right now, is just as challenging as recruiting for jobs. So we're seeing some of those challenges with our BOCES partners and our SUNY Adirondack partners for training programs across the spectrum of all programs. And again, childcare providers are not making livable wages. And so how are we going to address that? Because that doesn't encourage or incentivize somebody to join the field if they're going to struggle to make ends meet. And of course, it's still, high risk environment. So low pay, high risk makes it a challenge for us to recruit. However, the optimist that I am, we are laying the groundwork, the foundation for these programs so that post-COVID, we will have fewer barriers for recruiting people into the childcare industry. But we are asking local and state officials to think about what other ways we can incentivize people to join the childcare industry, because it's impacting everybody.
Supervisor Leggett.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Liza, how can municipalities help interface here and move this forward? Is there any opportunity?
Thank you for that. That's something we have to keep thinking about. I know that when we receive, obviously I'm being the optimist, when we receive the federal money for this childcare project, we've also asked that businesses contribute to this cause, so that we have $25,000 to go towards startup costs that the federal money can't cover. And so municipalities, I feel like, can encourage folks that they know in the business community in each municipality to participate in this project as well. That's one thing. Transportation, again, somebody had the idea at DSS that the same way we have transportation to schools, why don't we have transportation to childcare? And certainly I think that's something we could visit down the road when we have more childcare providers within each community, so that there is a transportation system just like there is for the schools community in each respective neighborhood. So those are some of the things we can start thinking about as a municipality, is getting business engagement, addressing transportation, and of course, when the program launches, with helping to get the word out too, with the opportunity for your residents.
Thank you.
Thank you, Liza. Are
Thank
there
you.
any other questions? All right, with that, we will move on to planning.
Thank you, everyone. Happy Thanksgiving.
You too.
You too. Good morning, Wayne.
Morning. Seems as though I was standing here not too long ago, but anyway. We have 5 resolution requests for consideration by the committee this morning. The first 4 are under one item there. They're moving funds around in capital funds to zero out balances so that they can be closed. Some have a little cash in them, some have money, have a due to. So working with Rob Lynch, we came up with this whole process here. And I'd ask the committee's consideration, basically one motion for all 4 of the transfers if you want.
So move.
Second by Garrity.
Thank you, supervisors. Go ahead, Wayne. Is there more explanation?
No, that's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be closing out 4 capital funds and transferring a little bit of cash into one of our existing funds.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
And then a little bit of cash that you don't use is just into inter-fund transfers.
It's
Or-
actually, it's going into our 2016 First Wilderness Award, and we're going to be updating all the signage and the kiosks with that.
Okay.
So that signage is probably 12 years old, and it reflects a train running and some other things. So we just want to get that updated.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great. Wayne, what's next?
Well, the next one will make the budget officer cringe, but every year in the budget package I've put in for the past couple of years that the state will at some point in time come out and say they're going to fly the county again for ortho imagery, and we have the opportunity to increase the resolution on that. The state flies the county roughly every 5 years. And so we kind of knew it was coming, but we didn't know if it was going to be 22 or 23. They are going to fly it next year. We have the opportunity, as I indicated, to increase the resolution of the imagery from what the state would just normally do. That cost to update the imagery is $86,200. We have done this, I believe, the past 4 times the state has flown the imagery. So it's not something new, but it's something that we've really not been able to budget for. There's a resolution request before you to enter into agreement with the state to acquire this increased resolution imagery. There is no funding source. It'd be a referral to finance to figure out where that could come from, whether it's from the fund balance or wherever. And that's really the request. And I think
Motion to bring it to the floor.
Thank you, Supervisor Leggett. Is there a second?
Supervisor Wild has stepped out. I don't know if we have a quorum right now.
You don't. The chairwoman needs to serve to make the quorum.
Yeah. Imaging.
Chairwoman, will you second that?
I will second that, Supervisor Chairwoman Hogan.
Thank you. Wayne, last time we did this 4 years ago, how much did we pay for it?
okay, I believe then it was 69,000 or 72,000, somewhere in that neighborhood. So
And so to be clear, we're bringing forward a resolution to pursue this opportunity and refer to finance.
that is correct.
Okay, Supervisor Leggett?
Thank you, Chairwoman. I am on Warren County GIS every single working day. Use it extensively to help solve problems within the town. And I am also on Washington County's and Essex County's GIS. We are far superior. It is much more useful. I don't know what resolution they go for, but it does not produce the visual results that a person would need to make decisions about land use. I totally support this, and I would hope that our neighboring counties would also do the same.
I agree with you. I use it every single day, multiple times. It's a great tool. Is there any further discussion or questions?
If I may add something to that. The state has a threshold of 1,000 square miles, and that from that threshold, there's a price break. Warren County is 987 square miles according to them. If the state did not give us the price break, which they actually did for an area over 1,000 square miles, the cost for this would have been $109,000. So basically, they gave us a 13-acre credit to get us, or a 13 square mile credit to get us to that 100,000 square, or that 1,000 square miles. So that brought the cost down to that 86,000. So they didn't have to do that.
Well, let's be sure to send a thank you note if we when we send the check. Supervisor Leggett?
I just wonder if they'll give us a break if we could get our neighbors on board as well.
Well, Sarah and I had talked about that, but there was no financial benefit, because we were looking to say, okay, if we can get 13 more square miles, that gets us to 1,000. But then the state said, well, we already gave you the credit. We rounded up to 1,000 square miles.
But is there a 2,000 square mile or something like that? We included our neighbors. So, and we don't share. Too complicated for right now, I'd say. Let's just hold on.
Right. There's a short window on this that we have to commit by the end of beginning of February. So that's why it's here before you today.
Any further questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Great, thank you. What else you got for us? Yes, Chairwoman Sieber.
Just so that the record reflects, I stayed in that vote just to vote on it because I seconded the motion, but Supervisor Wild is back in the room and I am back off your committee.
Thank you. Go ahead, Wayne.
Sarah should be on board. She's going to cover the 2 discussion items.
Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
So I just wanted to give you, if somebody could let me share the screen, that would be great. Just wanted to give everybody kind of a quick end of the season update on our letterboxing program. I'm not sure who's running the meeting, but if you could give me permission to share my screen, that would be great. While I'm waiting, it was a very successful first season. I think definitely exceeded our expectations. We went into Memorial Day having ordered 1,000 passports, and we're unsure as to whether we were going to distribute them all, but they were all distributed within the first week. And we ended up ordering an additional 4,000 passports over the course of the summer. So I think it's, thank you, Tammy. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, so we distributed about 4,500 passports. Those were distributed through town halls, chambers, visitor center, some of our participating sites. So wanted to thank all of our participants for their great cooperation with this project. Tannery Pond, the Chester Historical Society, Martin's Lumber, Mud Street Maple, North Warren Chamber. I'm sure I'm forgetting people, but we're very appreciative for everybody who helped us get this up and running. Joanne's office, tourism, was very helpful as well. So we had 91 people who finished the whole challenge. We will put all the boxes back out again next spring for people who didn't finish. We know we have a lot of people who have gotten partway through and are looking forward to finishing up next summer. So we're bringing them all in for the winter, but we'll put them back out again next Memorial Day weekend. We had lots of families who were, was really our target audience going into this. One thing that surprised us is how many seniors we had. We had a lot of seniors. We got a lot of feedback that this was a great challenge because it didn't involve a lot of hiking. So there was some hiking, but we tried to keep the distances short, keep the hikes manageable, and we also set it up so that hiking was not mandatory to complete the challenge. So that seemed to appeal very much to our senior demographic. Also, we had a lot of comments about learning history along with this. So that also appealed, I think, very much so to the senior demographic who were interested in the historic component to many of the sites. We had a huge range of ages, though. We had a summer school class do it, a Girl Scout troop. We had couples in their 20s, as well as families and seniors. We had, interestingly, with finishers, we had about a 50-50 mix of local residents and visitors. So this was not a challenge that could be completed in a day. We purposefully set this up so it was a little bit more of an investment of time. We wanted people to visit all of the First Wilderness communities. So I anticipate that we'll have some of our visitors who did half the challenge this year, and we'll finish it up next summer. But we had so much positive feedback from local residents, which was a lot of fun. Lots of people saying that they've lived here their whole lives and had never been to Stony Creek. That was a pretty common comment, that they didn't know that Dean Farm was there, and they loved knowing about it, as well as a variety of other locations. There's been lots of interest in whether or not we're going to do another one for next summer. So just a few, we asked people to tag on social media. So we had this just a few of our social media posts of people in the area or visitors out and about, visiting the various different sites. A few of our finishers here. And then just a few comments. This is from one of the volunteers in Lake Luzerne who helps man the historic sites over the summer. This was a huge success in Lake Luzerne. They had so many people because the sites there were fairly close together, and their historic tours that they host on the weekends were right in the mix of the sites. So that worked out really well. We had some interesting economic activity related comments. We got one passport who the woman split the towns up and did them all separately on individual days, and visited a restaurant in each community as she was visiting the letterboxing sites. And she wrote in her passport what she had for lunch each day at each restaurant. So that was fun to read. One of our sites was at Martin's Tree Farm in Thurman, and they had an enormous number of visitors. This was hugely successful for them, as well as for Mud Street Maple. Both of those sites asked if they could keep their boxes out for the winter. Since they have caretakers, we were happy to oblige with that. So all in all, I think it was definitely exceeded our expectations. It was a bright spot for me this summer because we had so many people coming in to turn in their passports, and every single person was so positive and enthusiastic and just loved it. So it was a really nice contrast to other things going on. And I enjoyed it a lot, and wanted again to thank everybody in our office who helped bring it to fruition. So on that note, there's been some talk about whether or not we're going to do a second one for next summer. We've had some internal discussion about that. We obviously this was a grant funded opportunity, so we don't have the grant funding that we did for the current letterboxing challenge. Also, this one only included the first wilderness communities, and there's been some interest in including the additional 5 municipalities in the county. So what we're tentatively thinking about doing right now is doing 2 sites in each of the 12 municipalities for next summer. So it would be a slightly smaller number of boxes, but covering the entire county. We'll keep the current one in place as well. So basically be first edition letterboxing and second edition letterboxing. And one of the recurring comments we heard was just the interest in learning more about the history of the sites that we picked. We picked at least one historic site in each of the communities. So along those lines, with our other project getting ready to launch that I mentioned last month, our collaboration with Cliff and Redfield Interactive in Saratoga, in which we're focused on the history of the first wilderness. We've spoken about potential. I think we will likely go in this direction of asking the town historians to pick one historic site in each town, and then doing an actual more fleshed out trip report with more focused on the history of that particular location that will tie in to the letterboxing, just because that's been such a successful focus for us. So that is it for letterboxing. Does anybody have any questions?
Supervisor Bramer was wondering what the link was, but I think I just found it, so I'll put it up on the chat.
Okay, it's,
Story maps.
I'm typing it in. It just has a www.firstwilderness.com. So just type that in the chat. And okay, so I'm going to just switch over and talk a little bit about our collaborative project with Cliff and Redfield Interactive. We're moving ahead with this project, developing content with the intent of launching this at the similar time frame to the spring semester. So right now we're working on outlining the project, which is fairly set, and then getting all of our expert contributors on board, and engaging our student interns. We also have expanded, because we're going to have so much focus on the first wilderness with this project. We decided to actually incorporate some planning that we were planning on doing it anyway, but incorporate it as part of this project. So once we have our new supervisors on board in January, we are planning to host public forums in each community, similar to what we did in 2014, 2015 timeframe, just to meet with all of the towns. We know we have some new supervisors, some new town board members. These will be public forums where we'll engage the communities in helping to identify priorities in each community for development, and hopefully for applying for grant funding through our CFA process in the summer. So we'll give you more information about that at our next committee meeting, but just wanted to let you know that we're bringing that component into this larger project. And that's it, unless anybody has any questions.
Sarah, I have to say, I'm really excited about this collaboration. The reach of it is tremendous, and it's such a wonderful way to really delve into our history. So thank you for seeing the opportunity and saying yes.
Yeah, I'm super excited about it too.
Does anybody have any questions?
I did what you say, Chairwoman.
Anything else? All right, thanks for being with us here today. Wayne, have you got anything more?
No, that's it. There's no referral or pending items. I don't know if there's any public comment.
Don?
Hi, Chairwoman Hogan. There is no public comment on YouTube.
Great, thank you. With that, on your agenda, it says EDC, but Jim Siplon is taking today. He didn't have a report for us today, but instead we do have Chuck Barton from Barton's Mines here to explain a mine permit renewal process that Barton Mines are going through and talk to you all about it. Chuck, do you want to come up to the podium? Before you get going, Chuck, I'm just going to explain to the committee that I'm going to step out because of my position with the APA. I'm not supposed to be in the room for this discussion, and Supervisor Leggett will be running the meeting. When you're done with the presentation and discussion following, would somebody please text and let me know, and I will rejoin to close the meeting. Thank you. Thanks for being with us, Chuck.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. You have the floor, please.
Okay, good morning. My name is Chuck Barton. I'm the Chief Operating Officer of Barton Mines. I'm here today to talk about Barton Mines Ruby Mountain Mine Permit Modification Application that was submitted to the APA on October 15th. With me is Trevor Thomas. He is from H2H Geoscience Engineering, and he and I will do the presentation together. I'll start with some background information and he'll go through the permit itself. We have taken the presentation we did to the public back on October 26th at Tannery Pond, about 30 slides. We realized it's probably a little long for this meeting, so we cut it in half and we'll try to move through quickly. If there are questions, please let us know, and at the end, of course, we'll be open for questions. I need to start by saying this isn't the first time I've been in front of the Economic Growth Committee. I served on the EDC board from 2010 to 2016, including chairman the last 3 years. And it's my pleasure to be here presenting an economic opportunity to the county. When you think about economic opportunities, there's attracting new businesses to the area, and there's growing businesses in the area. And as we know, years ago, we attracted Just Water. And on this presentation, by the way, if we could just go to the presentation mode, that'd be all right. Sorry, we're just going to get the initial chart up. But while that is happening, again, there you go. Perfect. Thank you. In the world of economic development, with Just Water, we worked real hard in this county to land Just Water, and that has been a successful story for us. Now I want to talk about Barton Mines, which is a very well-established business. We need modification to our mine permit to continue the operation and to grow our operation. So with that, if we go to the first slide, please. So why are we here? Barton Mines is reaching a crossroads in a 143-year history in the Adirondack region. Current permit parameters allow only 8 years of Ruby Mountain operation. Barton is seeking APA and DEC approvals to modify the existing mining permits in order to sustain the life of the business, local jobs, and our many economic benefits to the regional community for generations to come, while minimizing impacts to our neighbors and the environment. Go on the next slide, please. How did we get here? Barton's management team and outside technical experts have worked diligently over the past 3 years to develop a proposal that meets operational needs in a responsible manner and incorporates feedback from our neighbors to minimize community impacts. Since April, we have been meeting with since April, over a dozen community groups to tell them what we're looking to do and to take their feedback. During the presentation, you'll hear about some solutions that have come out of those public meetings. As I mentioned, we submitted the application October 15th, and Barton Mines conducted this public meeting on October 26th at Tannery Pond. Please note that although Barton Mines has submitted the application, additional dialogue with community members continues. So let's start with the Barton Mines story. If you go to the next slide, please. The company was founded 143 years ago by my great-great-grandfather, Henry Hudson Barton, born in 1830. That is a picture of him in the middle, and people say he looks like Colonel Sanders. He actually lived in Philadelphia and traveled up the Adirondacks, specifically Weavertown area and North Creek area, in seeking a better mineral for a sandpaper business that his family owned. He found the Gore Mountain operation and the very high quality garnet at that location, and started mining in 1878. We actually found the property a year or two before that. The picture to the right is from the Gore Mountain operations back in 1890. And the picture on the left is the Barton family at a shareholders meeting back in 2017. It includes 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th generation family members. Just to give you a size of the family, I'm in 5th generation and there are 54 of us, so quite a large family. As we look at going into the future, we now have our first 2 6th generation family members joining the board. So just like any family business, we continue to evolve. If we go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, Barton Mines started garnet mining in Johnsburg in 1878. Exploration started with Weavertown and North Creek and led to the development of our mine 2/3 of the way up Gore Mountain. Roughly 100 years later, Barton relocated the mine operation to Ruby Mountain. And when you look at this aerial photograph I have up here in the lower right, you can actually see Gore Mountain ski area. And just above it is where our original mine was located. That orange circle signifies a solar field that we now have on that site, which I'll explain more about later. And then you go up to the upper left corner, and you can see Ruby Mountain property, and I'll explain more about that site with another photograph. In the middle is the Hooper mine, and that was a mine that started in 1898 and ended in 1928 when Barton and Hooper merged. We had the superior deposit, they had superior technology, and it was a wonderful merger. One thing I want to mention about the Ruby Mountain property is there's only 4 large hard rock garnet mines in the world. There's 1 in Montana, and there are 2 in China. The operation itself is very unique. If you go to the next slide, please. So thought we should talk a little bit about our products. Starting on the left is a rock, the ore that comes out of Ruby Mountain. And number 2 is after we do our mineral processing, we extract the garnet grains. We take those garnet grains and put them in different sized products for different industries. The 3 primary industries are first water jet cutting, which is high-end manufacturing. We sell our garnet to manufacturers such as aerospace, automotive, medical device manufacturing. And with a high pressure water, you put garnet in that water and it can cut almost anything, including 6-inch steel, stone, glass, plastic. It has a wide variety of uses. The picture in the middle is our abrasive blasting market, and that is when you take the garnet and put a high stream pressure of air, and you can remove a coating and leave a specific technical profile for the next coating. This is particularly used in the naval industry, and we're actually involved with our 3rd aircraft carrier project right now. And the picture on the right is specialty finishing, and that's with our powders. That's an optical grinding application. There are many other applications with our specialty powders. So these are the 3 primary markets we're currently serving. If we go to the next slide, please. Let's talk about the company today. We are one of North Country's largest private employers. We have 75 positions up in Johnsburg and Indian Lake areas. Plus, we have 30 positions in the Glens Falls area. Our economic impact in the region is about $15 million, half of it wages and benefits, and half of it local purchases and services. We also pay property taxes $400,000 a year, and obviously work with nonprofit contributions. We also have launched a new business, and this will be part of the permit application process. It's called Northside Performance Minerals, and I'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. You go to the next slide, please. We look to strive in everything we do, including exceeding industry standards where we can. The left side is some data showing our safety record. The industry we serve, the average injury is about 2.2 per year over an 8-year period. We are at 0.7. Our injury rate is actually 68% less in industry. And currently we're running 670 days injury-free. So obviously we have a very strong safety program. In the middle is our Gore Mountain site with our solar field, 7-acre solar field, over 2 megawatts. So we are a company that is using green energy to do what we do on the mining side. And the right-hand side is our LEED Platinum certified green headquarters building located downtown Glens Falls. We bought this building in 2005. We moved in towards the end of 2007. Obviously, there was a premium to be a green building. It's a 30% premium, but it's well worth it given the environmental impact and also the pleasure for our employees to enjoy that environment. We go to the next slide, please. Now I'm going to start moving into explaining the operation a little bit before turning it over to Trevor. So this site diagram here, the green line is our property boundary, about 850 acres. In the upper right is the quarry. Lower left is the residual minerals pile. We're calling that a residual minerals pile because now we are able to have commercial outlet for that material. And again, I'll talk about that momentarily. Just a little bit further reference, down at the left, you can see the corner of 13th Lake. And right in front of the property there is 13th Lake Road that traverses down to Route 28. This, by the way, is really in the upper northwest corner of Warren County. The white dotted line is our current mine boundary. And Trevor will explain how we'll be seeking to expand that boundary. One other thing to mention before I leave this slide is that last year the APA and DEC deemed our site to be compliant with all the regulations. So we are obviously in very good standing with both groups, both organizations. If you go to the next slide, please. Here's a picture of our quarry. We do need to emphasize that not only is it a high quality garnet, but we have no heavy metals and no hazardous minerals. And this has been thoroughly tested, and obviously we have a responsibility to keep our employees safe and also the representation of what we sell into the market. Lower section, I mentioned earlier about the rock going to the garnet grains. Number 3 there is the leftover, and this is what we're calling our residual minerals. If we go to my last slide before turning over to Trevor, this is another further explanation of showing how we do what we do. So the upper left, you have the quarry where we do our drilling and our blasting. And then from the quarry, we load the haul trucks that go to a primary crusher, take rocks up to 1.5 feet in diameter and bring it down to about 1/4 inch in diameter top size. And from there, we'll go to Ruby Mill where we'll do a lot of science in the mineral separation of taking just the garnet out. And then once the garnet is removed, we put it in a haul truck and we traverse 4 miles down 13th Lake Road to our Hudson River plant located on Route 28. And down there we have 2 finishing plants. We have a powder mill and we have a grain mill. And that from there we'll do some final screening and then packaging. And then ship product to our traditional customers. You go back up to Ruby Mill, you'll notice there's a red arrow going out to the right, and that's our residual minerals. And we actually have two types. We have coarse and we have fine. The coarse is the pile you will commonly see behind the mill, and the fine are a slurry that we have in containment cells currently within the coarse residual minerals. You'll notice the arrow going down from residual minerals. That is North Site Performance Minerals. And if you Google that, you'll see our website with all the technical specifications for the minerals we're looking to introduce into the market. One is a market we're currently servicing. We're taking the hornblende and leaving traces of garnet, and it's going to be an economic solution for the water jet market that we already serve. And this could be tremendous volume. This volume could actually exceed our garnet volume right now. We're also taking the feldspar, which is a white mineral, and realizing when you micronize the feldspar, it can be added as a filler in the powder coating industry. And the testing has shown that our feldspar improves corrosion resistance up to 30%. So this could be a tremendous opportunity that could far outstrip the garnet business because of, the powder coating industry is quite large. So the main issue is that box on the right. Our challenge is we need new mineral storage space so we can continue the operation. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Trevor.
Thanks, Chuck. As Chuck said, my name is Trevor Thomas. I'm an engineer with H2H Geoscience and Engineering. And what I'm going to try to do today is condense a 1,000-page application into about 4 slides. So there's a significant technical component that goes on with this application as we move forward. Just so everybody's aware, although we have submitted an application to the DEC and the APA, we are still in the process of working with them. They're reviewing our technical studies and reviewing our conclusions to come up with what's called a complete application. So we're still in the process of addressing comments from them, and this is still a fluid process as we move forward. One thing, just to stay on this slide for a second, what Chuck had pointed out, after the minerals are processed at the Ruby Mill, there are, we have the waste product or the byproduct, which is residual minerals. And those are broken up into 2 different categories, the coarse grained and the fine grained. And just to put a finer point on that, the fine grained residual minerals are what we have an issue with moving forward. That's what's limiting the size or capacity of the life of the mine at this point in time. And we needed to come up with a solution to store those minerals. So just to think about it, it's a very, very fine grained material, and it requires lateral containment on all sides. Whereas the coarse grained residual minerals can be stacked in a pile. So we had to come up with a creative solution to address that. If you could advance the next slide. And 1 slide after that. So there's a number of project elements here that we had to balance and design for. It's an incredibly complex site. So if you look at this slide here, the elements on the left are the issues that we had to design to, and the ones on the right are the impacts that we were trying to minimize as a function of developing this site. Geologic conditions, economics, the life of the operation, the quality of the ore, geotechnical conditions and stability conditions of the quarry and the tailings pile, the quarry footprint, sequencing the mine over the time. So we had to figure out an iterative design process to approach all of those elements in order to minimize the impacts that you see on the right, which are major components of the permit application. Stormwater management, visual impacts, sound, noise, dust, those kinds of things. So Barton had, as Chuck had alluded to, spent almost an exhaustive study over the last 2 years looking at all these things, from investing in drilling and a number of different technical studies, and redesign of the site in order to minimize those impacts and address all the concerns as we move forward with the project. Okay, you can advance to the next slide. Okay, so this is an overview of the site. Again, it's sort of the slide that Chuck had before. The green line here, that's Barton's property line. To the southwest is 13th Lake. You can see the Hudson River in the northeast corner of this slide here. The white solid line is our proposed life of mine boundary. So that's the boundary to which Barton would be operating in under this permit modification. As he had pointed out, the upper right corner, this is where the quarry sits. This is where the minerals are extracted. Lower left side, that's the residual minerals pile where the residual minerals are placed and stacked. You see two colors in there. In the upper right corner, there's a blue hatching. And in the lower left here, this is a yellow hatching. Those represent the areas that we're proposing the expansion of the operation be. Upper right is to the proposed expansion to the quarry, and then the expansion to the residual minerals piles within those areas. So overall, that represents only an 8% increase of the total property area that's controlled by Barton at the site. So in terms of high-level details as to what we're proposing in this permit modification, again, it's an 8% increase in the area. We'd like to change how we store the fine-grained residual minerals. Right now, they're currently stored in the pile. What we'd like to do is to reduce the overall footprint of this proposed expansion, take advantage of the excavation areas within the quarry. So we will mine the material out and then place the residual minerals, the fine-grained residual minerals within the quarry that's been excavated. We want to change how we reclaim the site over time to limit visual impacts as the pile height increases. We'd like to reclaim those as we construct the pile, to screen the pile as it increases over time. And then the last point is to increase haulage from the site. And this is to accommodate the north site product that Chuck had discussed before. It's a new product. We're not increasing the productivity of the mine in general. We're not creating more garnet. We would just like to haul more residual minerals from the pile as a function of this application so we can sell those. Okay, so advance the next.
Trevor?
Yeah.
So can you explain the yellow on this and then the dotted black line?
The yellow area is the expansion. That's where we were proposing to expand the residual minerals pile. That's what that yellow hatching is. So black line is what's called the critical environmental area, and that's an offset from the adjacent Siamese Pond Wilderness Area, APA classification. It is a region that is offset from that classification for which we're including in the permit application.
And the distances?
The distance for the critical environmental area, I believe it's 1/8 of a mile is the distance. From the border, yes. Okay, next slide. So this slide shows the progression of the mine and the residual minerals pile over the life of the proposed permit. This is the way the APA and the DEC asked us to break out the expansion of the operation so it can be evaluated in phases. And what we see is a series of quadrants here, and this quadrant is the expansion of the mine. This represents the next 10 years of mining. We will be expanding the residual minerals pile to the north and to the south, and mining within the floor of the current quarry operation. The following 25 years after that, we'll be mining to the north, expanding the residual minerals pile to its what we consider the final reclamation grades to the north and to the south, and be reclaiming the pile as we move it up. Just to make a point that not until the next 10 years or 55 years out into the future, or 2055, we would keep the elevation of the pile below the currently permitted elevation. So there's a current permit elevation of 2,275 feet above sea level. Not until this time frame would we be increasing the pile height above and beyond that elevation. And then this would represent the final phase of the quarry, concluding in 2095, or an expansion of 75 years of the life of the operation. This is what the quarry configuration would look like, and the tailings pile, residual minerals pile. So again, just a couple of points. Our idea is to reclaim the pile from the bottom up, screening it as it's being constructed. Reclamation means plantings, tree plantings, topsoil vegetation, and final grading. We can move to the next slide. As part of the application, we're required to do a visual impact study to evaluate what the pile will look like over the life of the operation. This is one of the locations where you can see the current operation, one of two locations, this and the top of Gore Mountain. This is from 13th Lake Road, looking to the west. This is the current pile. So this picture here is the current configuration of the pile. You can see just the top of it at this location here. That's right about at the current permitted elevation of the pile. These next two slides are photorealistic simulations. So it's a projection of what the pile is going to look like over time. The center figure here is what the currently permitted pile looks like. So if we were to project out under the current permit, you will see an expansion of the pile to the south from this position here. And this represents the end of mining in 45 years under the proposed permit. It's an expansion to the south and then maintaining the same elevation at this time. Again, these are all part of the permit application that we have in the hands of the APA and the DEC right now that they're reviewing. We've received some comments. We're still in the process of moving that forward. Next slide, please. In terms of trucking, this is one thing we had mentioned. The idea that we'd like to increase the trucking from this facility to allow for the north side mineral to be removed from the existing tailings pile and to be put into market. Currently, our permit allows for an average of 5 truck trips per day. That's from the Ruby Mountain site to the finishing mill following 13th Lake Road in Route 28. We're seeking an increase to that to 16 truck trips per day. That's a gradual increase over the life of the operation as that market develops and as more minerals are being sold. We anticipate that to be increased to about 16 truck trips per day. And we had a detail, again, as part of this application, we've done a number of detailed technical studies. We had a transportation consultant work with us and figuring out what that meant in terms of an increase so it can be quantified. It's roughly 1 to 2 truck trips per hour. And in terms of the impact of that on the intersections that are the intersection between 13th Lake Road and Route 28, there was minimal or no loss of service at that intersection based on this proposed increase in traffic. And we have a detailed study that's in that. All those things are currently being under review, and more technical studies may be necessary from the APA and the DEC as we move forward with this process. I think that's the last slide, the technical study. So Chuck's going to finish up going through some of the next steps in economic action.
Thank you, Trevor. And as he said, it's very hard to put an application that's 24 inches tall in paper into a 20-minute presentation. So this is very high level. If there are further questions, we of course be happy to answer. If we go to the next slide, just a recap as far as the modification to our permit and what it will enable. Obviously enable us to continue our 75 jobs in North Country, continuation of the $15 million plus in annual regional economic activity, and then the true economic growth opportunity that we have in front of us with Northside Performance Minerals. Go to the next slide, please. As far as next steps, as Trevor mentioned, the application is currently in with the APA and DEC for completeness review. We have received some comments from the APA. We are waiting for comments from the DEC. Once all the comments are received, we'll then respond to their request, and then the application itself will be available for public comments. Before I open the floor for any additional questions, Barton Mines would of course deeply appreciate support from the Warren County Economic Growth and Development Committee. So with that, that's the end of our presentation. And are there any questions?
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you, Trevor, for that presentation. The floor is open. Supervisor Wild.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chuck, what is it that you really need from us? I'm in support of what you're trying to do, but how can we help today?
I think just an endorsement for the economic activity we bring to the county. As the APA is looking to look at our application, I think it's good for them to be aware that we're part of this county and part of the economic activity. So having an endorsement committee would be very much appreciated.
So if I may, I'm going to look over to the county attorney on this because the request is for a letter of endorsement and who would come up with this and what would be included. Is that something within our purview and our ability, gentlemen?
I will have to look into it and I'll give a response back to the board.
Okay. Any other comments?
Hey.
Mr. Garrity, Supervisor
What's
Garrity.
your hours of operation?
Well, the hours of operation, the quarry will run Monday through Friday, 7:30 a.m. to, 7 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. Now, the concentrate mill is a 24/7 operation. So we'll run the quarry, we'll feed the feed into the concentrate mill and run that 24/7. But that obviously is within the four walls of the concentrate mill.
And the concentrate mill is up there at Ruby.
That's correct. We have the quarry, the crusher, and then the concentrate mill.
Yeah,
Chairman?
Mr.
Oh, okay. Supervisor Wild, then Supervisor Bramer.
Mr. Chairman, thanks. Just to follow up with Larry. Larry, do we have any timing on what it might take for us to get feedback from you in terms of this letter of endorsement?
No, to be honest, I would say a week from this coming Friday would be fair.
That's fine. I was just making sure we weren't 3 or 4, 6 months out. But
No, I think
more
that's-
than adequate.
Hopefully, as we continue to work together, you'll get a better sense of my timetables. And I think a week from this Friday, because of the holidays, would be an appropriate time to expect a response.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Supervisor Bramer, and then after that, I'd like to call on the Director of Planning. Supervisor Bramer?
Thanks, Chairman. I know I'm not on this committee, so I'll keep it really brief. My first comment is I think it's kind of unprecedented that we would send some sort of letter on behalf of an applicant in a pending APA project. My other question actually is for Barton officials, though. Are you guys contemplating any future use of the rail line for transportation? I saw that you had a slide about the truck transportation.
That is a wonderful question. The market we currently serve does not take volume in train loads type volumes, and they prefer the 18-wheelers, which carry up about 20 tons per load. I will say with this growth opportunity we have with Northside Performance Minerals, it could be higher volume, and there could be some customers out there who would be very interested in what we call loose bulk delivery. So right now we don't have a need, but in the future we may.
Thank you. Director Lamoth, would you like to step up, please?
I just have a question for Chuck. The economic benefit that you indicated, is that direct economic benefit, or does it have a multiplier? Because, you know, your employees spend money in the community, they buy homes, they pay everything. So generally we look at a multiplier of around 3 to 3.5. So I'd ask you.
Don't go away from the podium yet. Well, let him finish, and then Wayne, I have a question.
Thank you for the question. That is direct, that is not multiplied, and that's on a New York State-wide basis.
Thank you. Director Lamoth from Warren County Planning. Any comments on how this looks? Has there been any precedents before on applications like this? And in the larger economic planning for the county, where does it sit?
Well, you know, obviously in this part of the county, full-time year-round jobs, pay benefits, they're at a premium. And since this is an existing enterprise, you know, I think the impacts the negative impacts are minimal. And as you see that this is going to be over a number of years, I think the economic stability that it offers the region is very important to that part of the county. You know, I think when you look back at some things, the county, or at least this committee, has taken some positions in support of private industry. There was some sawmills over in Thurman where we lobbied or proceeded to ask for legislation and funding for three-phase power along that side of the river. So I don't think it's without precedent. Have we done anything for Barton Mines specifically? In my 41 years, I don't remember anything, but you know, I'm getting older. My memory's not always the best, but that's the best I can answer you.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that answer. Any other questions from the committee or open to the floor? So, Yes.
One thing, if I could mention, I forgot to mention at the beginning, that Ruby Mountain operation had the Warren, Washington IDA loan for $7 million back in the late 1970s, early 1980s. So just as a precedent, the county was involved with this project at its original beginning.
Yes, Supervisor Driscoll.
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to point out that Barton Mines operations is also important to the city of Glens Falls and the 30-plus staff people who are employed down there. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Mr. Barton, this board has not been attending any of the public meetings and whatnot. Could you perhaps bring forward what some of the major criticisms of this expansion are?
Sure, absolutely. The meeting, the 26th of October was very well attended. We had over 60 people there, and a variety of people. We had retirees, we had neighbors, we had environmental groups, we had business groups. At the end, we had questions and answers. I will tell you that I had one gentleman come up to me and say, now I understand this, and now I'm a supporter. I had one gentleman come up to me and said, I don't want to hear a thing, even Monday through Friday during business hours. So there's a variety of comments that had come back from the people. We do have the Friends of the Siamese Pond Wilderness Area, a group organized up in the 13th Lake area. We've been having some very good communication with that group. That group did express some concerns about dust, and we have now these dust suppressant solution within the application. They have expressed concerns about noise. We did a noise assessment. It shows that we are compliant. The EPA has come back and asked us to do additional acoustic analysis, which we are in the process of scoping out. There's been discussions about lights from the property. The lights that we have on the property are basically for safety purposes and are primarily at entrances of buildings. Nevertheless, we obviously are looking at our lights, and wherever we can change a directional light or anything that to take a light away from shining down the valley, we will do that. But we really don't have a lot of lights up there. And there have been some people express concerns about the haulage, but again, it's sort of fundamental what we do. If we're going to grow this business in Northside Performance Minerals, we do need to haul more material down. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
okay?
it does. Thank you. Does that spur any other questions from the committee? So, Supervisor Thomas.
What kind of job opportunities do you see in growing?
It's another great question. It will depend on the market acceptance. It could go from 5 to 30. So it will depend on the volume and the market acceptance. As I mentioned, that we have two different markets we're going after. We're cautiously optimistic one of these are going to hit. Both of them hit, it's going to be tremendous growth.
Chairwoman Sieber.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I certainly appreciate the time and the effort that you've put in with talking with our board. I know you've also had some mini meetings along the way over the last several months where you've talked about this. I don't know if it's appropriate or not, Chairman Leggett, but later today, Government Operations and Advocacy is meeting. I don't know if that's something that you prefer to make a resolution to send over there, because we do deal with a lot of advocacy and legislation out of that committee, much like we just did with sending something over to Facilities. Unless you're perfectly comfortable with doing the letter of intent here, that's fine. I know as chair of the board, I am very comfortable in supporting this in any way that I can. He has continued to not only inform and educate members of this board, including our county administrator, but has gone above and beyond with the public outreach. As you know, this is something in the past Warren County has certainly supported, along with our regional partners. So just to throw that 2 cents in there for you.
Thank you, Chairwoman. I think economic growth and development, the fact that it includes the planning and as well as the other aspects, this is an appropriate committee to send a letter from. But thanks for that suggestion about government operations. I must admit, I live less than a half a mile from a hard rock quarry. That's also an asphalt plant, and that also has quite a lot of traffic noise, crushing. They don't have the same hours you do. It's much broader, and when it comes on to a first serve, first come basis, first come, first serve. You know, our residence has been there a lot longer than the hard rock quarry, but it is one of those things that when we live in this area and you look at what we can produce, our natural resources are the basis of it, and hard rock is one of them. And it does come with truck traffic, it does come with noise, and it's the price we pay. Without it, we really don't have much else. We also have logging. I have a major log sort yard half a mile from my house as well. So out of the several hundred tractor trailer trucks or triaxles with pups or tandems that go by my house throughout the season, we go, you know, it's a known entity. Also, I've attended most of the APA meetings over the past 4 or 5 years, one way or another, and I know that they do a very in-depth review of all applications, and they are very thorough and very cognizant of what this means to any neighbors, what are the impacts. I believe we are very fortunate in the Adirondacks to have the governance of land use that we do have to make sure that things are done properly. The DEC, the town of Chester, also has a sand pit, and we fall under their mines and operations there, and just knowing what they go through for getting any review and permitting. It is also very thorough as well, that this will not be a haphazard expansion and plan. Wish you luck.
If I could comment on that, I want to say that working with both the APA and the DEC staff for the past 3 years has been a pleasure. Very professional, very responsive. And now we have the response letter back from the APA, and in fact, was very comprehensive to this point. So working with the groups has been good, and we look forward to continue to work.
Yeah. One question though, it looks like you are going within that critical environmental area. Is there any talks of offsets?
That's part of what Trevor talked about, the balancing act. If we stay away from the area, then there'll be more visibility on the front side of the pile. But we went to the back side to minimize the visual impact. That's one of the balancing acts. Of course, this is land we still own, and there still, of course, is a buffer to the back property.
Very good. Any other questions for Barton? Shall we entertain a resolution to draft a letter in support of the Barton Mines expansion and send to whoever's needed? Administrator Moore?
Thank you, sir. Just a point of clarification, who's going to sign the letter?
Any recommendations on that?
I would think we'd look to the chair of the board or the chair of the committee typically, but if in this case the chair of the committee has a conflict, then.
Yeah. So we could go either way. We could pass this on to the full board and by resolution at the next board meeting, send a letter from the complete board signed with the blessing of the board and the chairwoman. Or we could draft one, and do we ever send it out of just this committee or any committee?
When do you need it?
Honestly, the sooner the better. The APA is in the process of reviewing the application, but again, we're still in the completeness review process, so we're respectful of the amount of time that the county needs.
Be happy then to pass this on to the full board for its review. We have the third Friday of December is when it would be produced. Chairwoman?
Mr. Chairman, if you're so inclined to do that, which is fine, could you please prepare, or could our county administrator and county attorney prepare a draft letter for the board to be able to review to make their decision on December 18th? And if that doesn't hold up the process too long for you, that's fine. Otherwise, we do many letters from the chair on behalf of the board when they come out of committee before the full board, but might be better for you to have the full board support.
That would be wonderful, and the timing's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Let's go with the full board.
Could you And you'll have a draft prepared, Mr. Chairman?
Soon, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to have a resolution out of committee, though, to draft that letter and send it to the full board. By Supervisor Garrity, second by Supervisor Wild. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, just one other question for Chuck. If there's other public hearings or events that may be important to this moving forward, would you mind letting the committee know?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I didn't put on my jacket also, thinking I'm going to get out of here. It's cold over on this side of the building. I wish they could turn up the heat a little bit, but anyway. All right. Still bit too. Any other business to come before the Economic Development Committee at this time before I turn it back over to the chairwoman of the committee? No?
May I just say thank you and happy Thanksgiving.
To you too. Thank you. Can we contact?
I sent her.
Thank you.
Isn't there business
There we
that
go.
we need to get done?
Madam Chairwoman, I turn the chair back over to you.
Thank you. And thanks Supervisor Leggett for taking that on. I appreciate that. Is there any public comment on?
Morning, no public comment on YouTube.
Great, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Make that motion?
Supervisor Wild, Supervisor Leggett, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.